Okay, it's dialogue, so it's your show now, really. We're going to take lots of questions. Lady at the front.
Hi, it's probably a very basic question. In a life cycle of a new company or a new business, what kind of PR would do at different stages? I'm a processy kind of person. I need to know these things.
Okay. Shazia, some thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess it often depends on the type of business as well, because you have to tailor your PR to the type of business that you've got. I mean, obviously with underwear, sex does sell, so it's a handy tool to use. It can get in the media, but it's very important to plan your long-term strategy. So sort of, identify your key messages, what you want to get across with your brand, what you'd like to see in the media in an ideal world, and then decide, what are the best avenues to do that, whether, you at the beginning, build your relationships with journalists or, pitch a case study, write an article for a journalist. There's lots of different things, that you can do. But planning is key, absolutely key. Can I ask, have you got your own business?
No, I don't. I'm thinking of starting one, but in my head I need to sort of plan out. So I'm thinking that from what you're saying, the social media bit is the first phase, and then you sort of, while you're getting all your systems organised, and then the next stage would be a more public, sort of stunt-orientated kind of thing, when it's a more mature business. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are many stages, and it will also depend on, you might decide to go for, regional coverage to begin with, local coverage, use the local media, then move on to national coverage, then move on to maybe broadcast. There are lots of different layers. I should at this point give a plug probably to the Business and IP Centre here at the British Library, because these are exactly the kinds of, detailed workshops that the library organises to go through these sorts of things in detail. Can we get the microphone to the lady 2 rows back? But Louise, any further thoughts on that?
Just those of you who are going into sort of professional services firms, for instance, what you're trying to do here is establish your reputation and your credibility in that area. And so, for instance, to start off very easily would be sort of comment, opinion pieces in local press. Get on your feet, go to events, speak in public. That's public relations too. And by the way, if there's a camera there, just get yourself in the pictures too, because you'll get in the local chamber magazine or whatever. To be honest, there are an awful lot of folk out there who are professional services, and it's through networking, through that reputation raising, and it's articles, comment pieces, letter to the editor, sponsor a local event, etc. It's not rocket science, but please plan it, because if you get a lot of coverage, heaven help you if actually you're swamped with orders. Now, I've talked about professional services. If Peachy Pink actually hadn't planned carefully and they'd done that stunt and her factory, however it is that she's manufacturing, got swamped, it can knock a business over. Back to your business plan. Please don't go for media coverage unless you're ready for the rush.
Great. Lady with the microphone.
It's a question for Rob. You mentioned if it's happened, it's already too late. But, what if you've just started a business, but you've done something really incredibly nice, great in the past as with a different hat. So can you not talk about it as a case study, do you think?
Sorry, about starting my business?
Talk about...
I mean, Rob's point was around broadcast, though, specifically. If the event's already happened, then, the cameras can't get there. Yeah, I mean, but you're saying, what, if you've done something interesting in the past, will it still be a story? What, for broadcast or generally in the media?
I think it works better for newspapers. It's not such a problem. I mean, Jonathan will have a better view on this, but I would take a photograph and send it to the press, and make sure it's a good photograph, by the way. But in TV terms, it's quite simple. If you don't see it, it hasn't happened. It's as simple as that.
What if you recorded yourself with your camera or video?
It depends.
Put it on YouTube.
You'd be unlikely to get it on the BBC. I mean, again, there's all sorts of professional standards, and it's always worse than you think. I mean, one of the things I've got down as a tip here is if you get a TV crew turn up, don't, for heaven's sake, say to them, "This will make a good shot," because it never will, and then they won't film it. It's like they wouldn't tell you how to run your business, and it's best not to tell them. Okay. But Jonathan might have a better thought about something that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. That in newspapers, it doesn't. I think actually generally it doesn't. If it's happened in the past, that's okay. If it's a good story, we we'll run a picture with something if it's worth it. But we're much more interested in a story about something. We can find a way around a picture if there's a great story going on. I think it's much more about thinking about is there something that this particular media outlet is going to be interested in. If you want to be in the FT, then you're going to be pitching a different kind of story than if you want to be in one of the tabloids. For instance, we didn't get that particular scoop on the underwear models in Bond Street, but I think you might understand why we didn't do that. But then, I mean, actually, the FT is a bigger organ as well than just the sort of weekday newspaper or even the weekend FT. We've got How to Spend It magazine. If you're trying to place a product, I mean, we joke within the FT that How to Spend It is kitchens you can't afford. Yeah. And it is that sort of high aspiration, so you may be a certain type of product you can get into How to Spend It, but there are those outlets for it. It's again, as I say, about reading around the paper or looking at the different programs and seeing there are lots of different ways to get yourself in the media. It's actually, the important thing is to know who you're pitching to and focusing on that.
Yeah, I think you're so right on that last point, Jonathan. Actually, for specialist businesses, there's probably often only a handful of journalists that you need a relationship with. I mean, it depends how niche your business is. But if that's the case, you can get to know all of them quite relatively easily. Anyway, sorry, lady there.
Hello, my name's Heidi Nicholson. I'm a partner in a business called Richmond Solutions, so there's the London brand. We can attribute most of our success to date, we're less than a year old, to social media and how we've put ourselves around LinkedIn in particular, because our niche market is job seekers. Okay. I was wondering how we get that success on social media to translate, if you like, into the wider media.
Okay. Why do you want to? If you're doing well anyway.
I suppose it's curiosity as much as anything. Okay.
Bit of vanity maybe as well.
Maybe a little bit of that, curiosity, and also the fact that some of the groups we've done particularly well on are linked to well-known media names in that particular sector. Okay, it's a good question. Great story, Louise.
Give me some examples of where you'd like to be seen and why.
Right. One which has struck me is sort of like the HR and personnel press, because certainly we've got a lot of good comment going through there. I suspect in the case of the media, the way we would tap in is there almost like through recommendation at that point, maybe rather than direct hits. The reason I think we've done well on social media is we've been able to put a lot of links in, taking people back to our site, back to blog posts, back to our general marketing through our website. Yes.
So you've got a story. You've been going a year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It depends how quickly you've been growing. There's a bit of a story there, but you've also got a lot of knowledge and now opinion. The likes of HR and personnel today and so on would probably want to understand from you some expertise. Perhaps you have an opportunity to give them a piece of research. What are your community saying? What is your community saying? So it could be that you run a simple online vote, poll, something. What are the big issues? What's the one big issue? Put that as your hook. Shazia was saying, you need a hook. Some original, and that could be some original research. Now, you may have, I don't know how many people are following you on social media, but if you've got maybe 500 plus, that's not a bad sample to then put together and say, the biggest issue at the moment for these people, this demographic, is this. And that's where you would start to, that I think would start to get journalists, editors going, gosh, I didn't realise that. Or actually, that's my opener to allow you. Now, you may have to write that piece. The one thing I would say, or to all of you, in a lot of trade magazines now, you've got an editor, managing editor, and the salesperson. So very often you'll have to be writers yourselves. So be prepared to write 800 words, 1,200 words, whatever, on an article, expert article. So I'm afraid you're going to have to brush up your writing skills too, to be taken credibly, to be credible. Is that
I think that's a great answer. There's a question. There's a gentleman, towards the back.
As you got that stunt underway for Oxford Street, how did you prep the press, or how did they know to be there at that point? And the second part is, around how can you write an article without being so salesy, if you see what I mean? Because you don't want to try and sell your products, but you're trying to get that good news story.
Yeah, that relates to what Louise was just talking about. Give.
Well, it was hard work getting all the journalists there. In the end, we got over, I think, 28 different media there, which I'd never seen anything like that in my PR career. We had 2 film crews and photographers and people from newswires and things. And it's amazing the coverage that you can get once you promise them 50 scantily clad women. I understand every business can't do that, but for us, it was the thing to do. And, we spent, at that time, we didn't have any PR support, and we spent 3 days before ringing round all the picture desks, all the newspapers, all the celebrity magazines, saying that we were going to be doing this stunt. And I think some of them that we spoke to, I spoke to them myself because, you must never be afraid of picking up the phone to a journalist, because as so many of the other panellists have said this evening, I mean, that they're eager to get that call, because especially if it's not, something that's already been in the news. So we did that. And then again, the evening before we did it, because we did our stunt at 9 a.m. On a very cold Friday morning, we rang around again to make sure people were coming, to give them that constant reminder. Because you have to remember, with your own business, if you're planning a stunt or something, a journalist or a picture desk isn't going to be just thinking about the one thing that you've been thinking about for the past several weeks. They're going to have a million things on their plate. But what you have to do is make your product or your brand so special that they want to come. And it's about being passionate about what you do, because I think the people behind the brand really make it what it is.
Great. Shazia, thank you very much.
Just like that, the comment about the column, get to know your publication. As Jonathan was saying, don't pitch to any magazine you don't know. Read it. You're the reader, the consumer. Write in a similar way. Remember, you're the expert. You're not selling your company. In fact, the best way you can sell your company is writing a piece that looks as though you're some sort of, not professor, but you're writing in a way that says that this is my expertise. At the end, you might be lucky to get a box out which credits you as the author and maybe a phone number. But don't expect it, please. PR is a drip, drip, drip approach. It takes years to get to where some companies are now. So the one article may not make the slightest bit of difference, but the combination of all of them will. So that's my advice.
Yeah, Rose, on the point of how not to make it too salesy, I would say, on the whole, don't worry too much, because the journalists will make it not very salesy. They'll take out all of the references. But if you want to help them on their way, use your company name minimally, maybe once, and use it only to establish your credentials. This is why you are qualified to speak on this subject. And now that I'm in PR, I look back on when I used to film for the BBC, we would film someone, and in a 3-minute piece, I often wouldn't mention the name of the company. And I just realised now that all over the country there were PR people going, "Oh, I can't believe it."
Yeah.
But it was absolutely standard practice. If you watch the 10 o'clock news tonight, you'll see some business. They won't mention the name of the business anyway, and some PR person will be crying tonight alone in bed. But you will they'll normally have a little caption, or there'll be something in there, and you've got to be grateful for that. So the journalists will do the job of making it less salesy.
Absolutely,
don't worry.
And that goes to Louise's point about it's a drip, drip, drip.
I'm Julie Hall from Women Unlimited. I've actually got 2 questions. The first one, hopefully, will be really quick. It's just following up on from your point about providing the article for somebody. If you've observed something that's going on, and you think it's controversial, and you think it's interesting, but you don't, you want it to kind of be a national story, what would you do? Would you put together a press release about this observation? So statistically, I've noticed something that I think is quite interesting. And obviously would like my brand to be attached to that, kind of someone else pointing it out. Does that make sense?
I think so. And there was a second part to the question.
Well, the second part to the question actually was about the stunts, is whether or not you guys know any examples of stunts for service-based businesses.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Well, are we talking about a letter to the editor? This is something
Possibly.
that you've read in an article, you've read...
Because if it's not proprietary
no,
research,
it's not proprietary.
you can't go the route that the lady over here was
as I've just noticed, because I work with women in business, I've noticed something that I think is really quite interesting. But you know, and I can't say what it is, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, except there's lots of journalists on the panel. They might think it's
and
interesting
250
too.
other people in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do obviously look on the most websites, ft.com or BBC and so on, have an opportunity for you as the consumer to comment.
Yeah.
So straight away, get in there. Think before you fire, please. You know, please, because we see not appropriate media.
Well, just on this one, what would you say, Jonathan, about the power of being a good commenter against articles? I mean, you know, the FT gets, you know, strong comments against articles. I mean, is that actually a PR strategy in itself to become a, you know, decent commenter against articles?
I'd say that's a huge opportunity for everyone in this room. You know, you can speak with authority on a subject, and I suppose that's about self-awareness and knowing what you can comment on and what you can't comment on. You know, I think the key is I've never done PR, so I'm not that side. But as a journalist, I know what you know, what an ideal person is. Someone who helps you enough with the story. You can chase up the story, and a journalist will always phone around and double check claims made. But if you can give enough detail, maybe some other people who might even back up what you say in your instance there, because you've got to remember the journalist is then going to a news editor and having to sell this story to someone else. So they're going to ask, you know, what if and why, you know, what, so what about that story. And anything you can do to help with that is good. Don't feel you have to write the story totally all the time. Just be a benefit. You know, you can be in the FT commenting on things if you've got good, strong opinions. So think about your opinions, and if they're valid. You know, we're always on the lookout. You know, budget times. There are lots of sort of set piece moments where we're looking for lots of business voices about things. Make sure you've got something interesting to say, but then you can say it and you're out there.
Can I mention something about timing? If you're wanting to send a letter to the editor, if you spot something in any of the national newspapers that morning, you must get that letter written and off instantly. I have one or two clients who love them to death, but it's when they say, Louise, I saw this fascinating article about 3 days ago. Can I write a letter to the editor? And I'm saying, no, we're not, because we'll look stupid. So frankly, timing, if you see something, get that letter together, ping it off by noon. I know it's 24/7 now at news desks, but do it fast, because others will get in before you.
Yeah. Let's have the lady there, yes.
Thank you. I think what I want to ask is somehow connected with that. I'm not in business presently, but I'm looking to get into business and leave my current career. I'm actually doing my second bucket list of 100 things for charity. So I feel like past stories, although I appreciate the media can't be there at the time, things like climbing the Gherkin wearing a pair of 5-inch heels, something that I've done, blagging my way into a secret KGB room in Eastern Europe, something else that I've done, that I feel is part of my own brand identity. The situation that I find myself in is that I've got quite a few high-profile celebrities following me on Twitter, and not knowing how to tie that all in, especially when so many of the things that I do on my bucket list are spontaneous. A lot of them are literally, it might happen within a half hour.
Right. So
how do I then go about that in terms of alerting the media to get that coverage? Because literally, again, I can rattle off a whole heap of things that I've done. Put in a plug, 100 Things Megsy on Twitter. Basically, I just want to know, how can I get the media there for some of those things that do happen spur of the moment?
Yeah, so there's a wide, I mean, aside from your climbing the Gherkin in your heels, there's a wider thing about leveraging a sort of personal brand here, isn't there? That somebody who has a brand that is about themselves. Any thoughts on that, Shazia?
I think, you know, what you're doing sounds great, very, very interesting. But, you know, often when you have got that kind of time frame of, you know, an hour before, half an hour before, you are making it very difficult for journalists, and maybe a little bit for yourself as well. I think planning is key in anything that you do that you want to see in the media. And again, you know, thinking of what you're doing and yourself as a brand, you know, looking at the bigger picture and thinking, right, why do I want to do this? What do I want to achieve? And, you know, what publications or what radio stations, what TV channels can I see this on? I mean, you know, the last thing you'd want to do is send out, you know, a press release or an ops note to journalists that aren't, you know, interested in that type of thing. I mean, you know, the FT wouldn't have a home for something like that, but I'm sure, you know, another publication was. But planning is really key, and identifying what you are as a brand as well.
Hi there. I launched my business on Monday. It's called storemates.co.uk, and Storemates. And it helps people rent out their garage or loft or attic to people looking for storage locally.
Excellent.
So it's a fairly interesting idea.
Great.
I don't know anything about PR, so I went to a PR syndication, PR web, put it on there, and it was picked up by somebody in Dallas.
Right.
So so I'm really, really pleased about that. Yeah. So, for somebody not knowing anything about PR, do you use PR syndication outlets? And what should I put in the title of my press release to get noticed, picked up?
Well, first of all, great idea. Immediately it comes across. I don't know whether anyone else agrees, but you get it straight away. So you've got to have it. There's got to be a story there. I mean, I would have thought, especially if they're garages, they're physical things, the first stop has to be local. You know, online and newspapers and the like. But Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I used to say to my producers was, what are the pictures? And so you'd have to consider what the pictures are. And another thing I said earlier on, it's always about people. So if you've got someone doing something really strange with someone else's garage, you're basically...
That would put a hand up again.
Yeah, you have got someone doing something strange with someone's garage. Well, it doesn't involve the heels, does it, and the gherkin? So.
I do have my girlfriend ascending a loft ladder.
You could take that very wrongly, actually. Yeah, I withdraw that.
Yeah. The tone is lowering by the second.
Yeah. This is why they should never put me live on TV. So. But yeah, I mean, seriously, it's about people. If you've got a really interesting thing that's happening and you've got something to see, again, I'm only speaking as a broadcast journalist, you know, that then would be interested. But I, you know, like everybody here, my ears pricked up and I thought, that's quite interesting. I would think about how I could make it work as a story, so yeah.
Yeah. On the syndicated one, I mean, because we've got a lot of questions, speak to Louise. I'm sure you've got some technicals, but we'll do that afterwards in the networking. But I'm sure you've got a story there. Okay, a couple of questions. Should we take these two questions together, the gentleman and the lady here?
Hi, Hital Sabani, Marketing Sharpness. I help businesses get more sales and more leads. There's lots of great stuff come up tonight, and I've been making notes myself, but I see people going back to their desks tomorrow, the phone rings, 100 emails, yet everyone thinks PR is vital. What are your tips for keeping hold and distilling today and actually making sure that doesn't get lost?
Making space for it.
Yeah.
Okay, pass the microphone down. It's a good question.
Hi, I'm Nicoletta. I'm an image consultant. Does it help if you're a service provider to invite the journalist to experience your service?
Okay. Great. So how do you keep the space for PR strategy with all the other stuff that's going on in a business life? And yeah, interesting question there. Do you invite journalists to come and experience the service? Depends what it is, I suppose.
Yeah. So take it away, Jonathan.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Louise, talk about keeping the space for PR, because it's a point well made.
Yeah, I think the point also you made was how can you distill from today? And I'm looking at Claire here, and I'm thinking maybe we can put something online with some of our top tips panel. Maybe we can share that with you all. You've made notes, but there may be some more we can tell you. Realistically, I know what it feels like, but... No, please don't hire... Can I just say something about PR firms? Please hire the PR that suits your business best. We specialise in particular areas. We don't do an enormous amount of business to consumer. I do charity, but we do healthcare and bioscience as well, which is highly technical, right through to entrepreneurs. So please pick your PR company very carefully. Frankly, look at the ones around in London. I'm sure they're fantastic. There are some good freelance PRs around too, who probably aren't that expensive. I'm just about to get shot probably, but be very, very incisive. So please don't use me if I haven't got the right contacts or the right knowledge, or or the right passion for your business, because what Jonathan said, and everyone says it, you're the best people to talk about your business. Please don't go through a PR who perhaps doesn't care a toss about your business. All right, I'm going to get shot. But anyway, now then, so set some time aside in your diary. Frankie, do you have a diary? Do you have meeting diary? Just set aside a couple of hours a week and say, that is blocked out for me to do my public relations work, whatever that shape or form that takes, whatever's right for you. But be disciplined. It's a discipline. It's a business discipline like anything else.
Should you invite journalists to experience your services? I mean, go on, Jonathan or Rob.
FT comments
and while you're mulling on that, Shazia, a question from Twitter, which is just tell us more about aiming for a celebrity endorsement. So have a think about, there'll be a number of businesses, I'm sure, in the room that would love to have some celebrity endorsement. How do you go about getting them? Okay, Jonathan.
As tempting as it sounds, I think it depends on the title and the story you're trying to pitch. I'll go and visit companies if we're doing profiles about them, and it's very important to give readers a sense of what they're doing. Or I'm writing about a particular industry, and you need to talk about what actually happens in those companies. But there are other moments where you might have very strong views on the capital gains tax regime. I don't need to go and experience your business on that. I want your thoughts and your incisive experience as an entrepreneur, building a business or hiring people. I don't care what your product is on that.
I would have thought in the consumer PR world, then it's absolutely established that journalists will want to try out the product, service, whatever it is, and that actually becomes the story. It's you watch the mechanics of the thing taking place. In business to business, it is a bit more a bit of a different call.
Yeah, or even bits of the FT I'm writing for. If I'm doing something in the FT magazine, a sort of reportage piece, then yes, I'm going to the company, and it's a lot of the colour, as we say in journalist parlance, what's actually happening around that we're explaining to readers, and we'll have lots of pictures about the business. But then there'll be other stories where we're actually talking about something you've been through building the company. It isn't so important for me to eat your cereal bar or use your service, whatever that is.
Shazia, celebrity endorsements. Any top tips on securing them? Very difficult. Everyone wants them. Every consumer brand knows that they'll benefit from them. The celebrities know the game. How do you go about securing them?
Again, with celebrity endorsement, much like getting journalists to test your product or service, it's about celebrity seeding, getting your product into the hand of that celebrity or getting your product into that celebrity's manager's hand, and inviting them to test it, and often inviting them to even review it. And it's about keeping up with what's going on in the papers and the celebrity magazines as well, and looking to see. For us, we've got an anti-cellulite range of underwear that we do, for example. So flick through the magazine, see who they've got a bad picture of, send them a nice package of these products. And it works, and you'd be surprised, because people try out these products, and, celebrities, as much as anybody else, they love a freebie. And, you package it nicely for them, and, you get people tweeting about your products. And, some brands, pay for the celebrities to be involved in their brand. That's not something that we've ever had to do. We've got some great products with some great technology behind them that people like to wear every day. People like to wear them, and celebrities like to wear them.
Hi, PR, for me, I always associate with products as opposed to services. What kind of PR would you say is suited to service-oriented companies, more B2B type?
Yeah, because that came through. It was the second half of the question that we avoided, didn't
Exactly,
answer.
Yeah, that was an answer, which is why I'm repeating it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So it's about Stunts, effective PR for service businesses, which are obviously, not as obvious as launching a, Peachy Pink range. Yes. Any thoughts on this, Rob?
On the The best thing to do is find out if there are any specialist publications in, in the industry that you're working in, and find out the kind of people you want to reach, find out what they're reading. Is it websites? Is it sort of specialist magazines? And sometimes, I don't quite know how to put this nicely, but they'll have a lower threshold than, say, the Financial Times. It's probably easier to get into that sort of thing. But it's like with everything, it's kind of working out where the people are that you want to reach. And I think that, what is it your business does?
Events management.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there'll be loads of magazines and there'll be websites. You just need to get onto that. And that way, you'll find the decision makers and the people in the companies that decide who to use for events.
And Louise has already made a really powerful point about research as well, which actually now is so much easier to do. You used to have to commission research. You used to have to spend, oodles of money on market researchers and the like. Whereas, if you've got a lot of followers, if you know a lot of people, you can do instant pieces of research, which, as Louise has already explained, can be very effective. Stunts a bit more difficult to see a way through.
One of the purposes of having a PR professional on board is to make sure things don't fall over and go horribly wrong. Stunts can do that, and you can end up with egg on your face, and frankly, your reputation's blown. Stunts, oh gosh, I wouldn't call them stunts, but I would say, for an events management company, I guess there are opportunities for you to talk about some of the famous people you've managed who've come through, and perhaps when you know someone's coming, think around some sort of a photo opportunity with them. In the professional services, I would say, please enter awards, business awards, no matter how small you are, don't be shy, back to what we were saying. Business awards are quite valuable, but research them as well. Are they going to reach your target audience? Is it the right area that you want to be rewarded in? So don't forget all those areas as well. But, your stunts got to be very, very, very carefully thought through. And we haven't got long enough to even test a few ideas out here. But be careful.
Can I just say on that, if you're using a stunt, perhaps it's because the story isn't interesting in the first place, and the journalists will suss that out very quickly. There has to be, every time there has to be some substance, there has to be something genuinely interesting to what you're trying to do. Yeah.
Okay, we've got another couple of minutes, and I'd like to take these two questions from... Sorry, Claire. Up and down you go. Sorry. Lady there, gentleman there.
My name is Susan Grossman. I'm a former BBC journalist, and I'm now working as a writing coach, doing the sort of things that you've been talking about, which is helping people who know what they want to sell, but maybe not that good at writing about it themselves. And one of the things that I come across all the time is small businesses who have a fantastic product, but are very impatient. And I would like to sort of reiterate what you're saying about that, and that is you have to wait for the right hook to hang your story onto. And the right hook, sorry, not the right hook, but the right hook can often be something that you can put into Google Alerts. You can put in your topic and wait for a news story or a celebrity doing something similar to what it is you're marketing, and then use that as the hook to talk to the news editor or the features editor immediately. But you can do your own PR. You don't need, I'm not doing Louise out of a job, but small businesses, you just need to know about timing and about what editors want, and then you can do it for yourself.
Great. Good point. Thank you very much. Gentleman here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Malcolm Snook, and I used to run an advertising agency for 15 years with major brands like Yamaha motorcycles. So PR is a different side of things, and I'm not trying to switch people over to advertising. 8 years ago, I closed my business down because my clients worked with my agency because they wanted to work with me, and I wanted to get away, and I bought a yacht and started traveling around the world. And when you're alone at sea for a long time, you can have some quite creative ideas. So now I'm back to try and put one of those ideas into practice. And my question is about timing, but not in the same regards as, responding quickly to something or how long before a stunt, but timing in regards to launching something. Because I want to start a business to promote peace in the world. And I have an idea that I believe is unique and new, and it evolved over a long period of time. I can't explain the whole thing to you in 2 minutes, so I won't try. But I had a meeting this morning with a very high-flying accountant who represents some very big businesses who want to spend money on this kind of thing rather than give it to the tax man. But it's not a done deal.
So your question, go on, because we've got
very
short
basically,
left.
should I try and create a PR thing before I have funding or something in place in the hope that that will bring funding, or should I keep my powder dry and not say anything about it until I've got something in place and working?
Okay, sorry to cut you short, but we have got very little time left. I'm going to ask Jonathan to put some thoughts to this. It's an interesting question. My observation would be that, and without knowing very much about it, but you are in the world here of influence and comment and opinion, and it may be that actually without talking specifically about your idea, you can start to get the debate running, which is the classic sort of letters to editors, comments, thought leadership type pieces. You don't give the game away about what the business is, but you start associating yourself with the topics, the big issues that you're talking about, and world peace is quite a big issue. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think you need to think about what you want to achieve with putting your message out there, really. And again, back to working out who you need to go through for that, and do your research. But know that it's not a guarantee. Doing like Louise says. It's nothing in this is a guarantee. It's a process. So, there may be another way of doing it if you're looking for, say, funding, another route.
Hi, how far in advance of an event would you plan on contacting reporters or journalists to cover that event?
Shazia?
I would say, depending on the scale of what you're planning to do, 2 to 3 days would be perfectly acceptable. A week in advance initially, and then reminders and, follow-ups. But you don't want to, end up stalking a news desk or a picture desk either. If there is something interesting enough there that you've sort of pitched for them to want to turn up, they will turn up because they will want that story.
Yeah. I mean, you might want to think about doing it, just getting the date in the diaries in the well in advance, 2-3 weeks ahead. I would have thought would be a good idea. If it's a big event, or if it's an event where you're going to have significant people turning up, then it might be 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance to make sure that it's in the diaries. Yeah. But then, as Shazia says, the actual push is the last few days.
Yeah. I think it probably varies on the media outlet. But in a sense, you can't give too much notice. If you're staging something, it's you think about it again. The journalist has got to pitch that to a desk editor or someone else who's going to commission it and take it. So you want to give them time to be able to sell it to the desk if they think it's a good enough story, to get space for that story in a paper or on a news slot.
And that ties in with the question that came up on Twitter as well about how do you know if your PR is going to work? Well, sometimes no matter how good it is, it won't work because there's a more important news story will come along and just blow you off the airwaves, and you just have to live with that. And also, someone was asking if journalists use Twitter. Yeah, do they ever? I mean, I've been on Twitter. There was a time when I thought the only people on Twitter were journalists. Yeah. And there's a serious point here, because if you're working on something like 5 Live on News 24 and you're trying to react quickly to a story, the first port of call you'll go to will probably be Twitter, and you put a message out saying, anyone got anything to say on this? And that's a very handy way of getting in on comment and things like that.
Yeah. And again, you'll know who the most relevant journalists to your bit of business are, so follow them. And then if they put that question out, you're there ready to respond, and then you get into the kind of close coterie that Jonathan's described. Probably the last question.
Hi. Very similar question, actually, except related to product launch. So at what point is it appropriate to start building relationships with journalists if you know, obviously, when your product is going to be launched? When is sort of too early and it's not relevant to them and they won't be interested?
Is it a new product from a new business or a new product from an existing business?
Well, probably both are quite interesting. questions. But for me, it's a new product from a new business.
Okay. All right. Louise and then Shazia, you've had direct experience of this.
Technical question here then. Is it aimed at the consumer market?
Yes, I'm launching a bikini company in February next year.
Right, okay, February next year. So if you think about the women's magazines and think about their lead times, if I'm working, say, with Good Housekeeping at the moment, what are we now? October, I think we're still on October, but my head is already ahead. We're now doing spring, summer with them, okay. So think about that lead time for particularly the consumer magazines, because you need at least 6 to 8 weeks, but with some of the major magazines, they're planning well ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, it's a great question for you to conclude with, Shazia, because you've done the same thing. What's going through my head a bit is that you should talk to the gentleman there about getting good shots for his garages. But anyway,
it was actually more with sort of the relationship building side, as in I appreciate the lead time.
Right.
So I'd need to be talking to them in January, but is that the initial point at which you make contact with them, or would you be building the relationships and taking?
You know a lot more about this than me, but I think somebody launching, an entrepreneur launching a new bikini brand, and having the guts to do it and raise the money and with an interesting brand, I think that's a conversation you could start well in advance, because people will be interested in you. Going back to my points earlier on, you in a small business are the story. But Shazia.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say once you've got your product line ready and you've got enough samples to sort of give to journalists to try out, you are ready to talk to the press and to the journalists. And of course, magazines do have long lead times, but there are so many other avenues these days, like the online versions of the magazines, TV as well. And for something like that, LK Today this morning, those sorts of shows would be great, because they are sort of that sort of target market, and thinking about when you go and see the journalist, what USPs your products have got as well. Why is your bikini more special than other bikinis that have been launched? And I'd say once you've got all of that clear in your mind, you're ready to talk to the journalist and take those first steps in establishing your relationships with them. And I think every brand has a great story to tell. It's just identifying what your story is and then pitching that to a journalist as well. I mean, when we set up Peachy Pink, we didn't just do the stunt, we had a story behind it. I went to every national UK bank for funding, and I had confirmed orders from the 3 of the UK's biggest department store chains, but I still got turned down for funding. And again, for business journalists, I
knew this one would come out.
Absolutely. And for business journalists like Matthew as well, for Real Business, we got the front page of Telegraph Business with that, and from that we got several different business leads from buyers and from distributors that wanted to invest in our brand and take our product. And we were ready for that as well. Once you're talking to journalists, be ready to be able to supply to distributors and buyers and stores very, very quickly, because they do not want to see then a one-man band. They want factories that can supply it. And before you take those steps to talk to a journalist, make sure you have all of that in place.
Jonathan, final word.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, aside from the joke that talking about bikinis will always get a journalist's attention, is that journalists go through the same thing when we're building contacts and talking to people. And when you're doing that, it's about when you phone someone up, always have something to say to them that they're going to be interested in. It may not be, a huge story, but have some sort of story to talk about each time. So, I'm having a nightmare with my suppliers and getting this, or that. Actually, you may strike gold, and it may be a great story that we can run with and make something of. But always have that story to talk. And don't just phone up and say, I'm going to launch a bikini firm in 6 months' time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Great questions on Twitter. Really interesting dialogue. Thank you, Jonathan, Shazia, Louise, Rob. Thank you, audience. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you all soon. Thank you.